Hello, everybody, and welcome to our episode. Today, we are going to be talking to you guys about education and how it is changing. As always, guys, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, stay tuned every week for a new episode, and let us know what topics you guys want to hear about next.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to another great episode today. Education is very near and dear to my heart. I pride myself on education since, I was a kid. It's always good to learn. So I'm looking forward to us talking about this topic today, getting some perspective from the chat. Go ahead and get us started.
There has been a lot of changes in education. So I remember actually when I was in college, I was graduating my bachelor's degree right when COVID hit.
Mm.
And we were in the middle of doing a bunch of projects, a lot of group projects as well in person. And it was like our final milestones to graduation. So we had a lot of big things going on. And right at that moment, like COVID hit and everything went online and we had to quickly adapt. So I'm curious to know, Jerome, about you around 2020 when COVID hit. What was your situation like with education?
Yeah, similar to you, when COVID hit, I was towards the end of my undergraduate program as well. I was taking 6 classes at the time, and then everything had to switch to online. And that was an adjustment. I didn't mind not going to the campus, but just having a course load of 6 different courses and also prepare for graduation at the time. But also with just dealing with life, it was very outcast, not something that I was accustomed to. But for me, the process was smooth. I didn't see a challenge with it. I was still able to focus and concentrate because I'm already a person who learns in like a solitude, small environment anyway. So I didn't have no problem adjusting. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think for most of my classes, it was a quite smooth transition. The only obstacle was like one of my classes was like super tech focused, and we had like our software at the computer in school. So
Hmm.
we had to pretty much like re download the software on our computers and get our stuff over. So besides that, though, I think it was quite smooth. But yeah, I think, it's crazy to think about how quickly education changed so fast. And then it kind of went back to before, but not really in totality. I think it really taught us all that we can do learning in a new way.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my next question, Jerome. How do you feel about the shift from traditional classroom environment to digital learning?
To be honest, I don't see a problem with it. I actually think it's very conducive to have both. And I'm gonna tell you why, because with in-person class interactions, it could get very mundane because it's very monotonous and it's been around since before me and you got here. And I think a lot of times people need the balance of being able to still have that in-person interaction to learn, engage, etc. But also it's always good to have that balance where it's digital, you can move at your own pace, still get assignments done, and you still can communicate with your classmates and your professors via chat, messages, etc. So I think it's good to get the best of both worlds. Yes, we all didn't want COVID, but it was some pros that came out of that. So I don't mind it. But what I will say kind of took a backseat is the ability to communicate somewhat as far as like with your classmates and just knowing how to communicate in general. Did you have a hard time adjusting with the COVID switch as far as like communication, or how did you feel about it? Because you're a very sociable person, so and you like interaction. So, how did you feel about the switch, that aspect of it, and what's your thoughts on? Do you prefer to be in class, outside of class, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so, I personally I love this is weird, but I love going to school. Like I actually really enjoyed going to classes and like learning and like having a teacher in front and engaging and like having my classmates and us talking too, grabbing food in between and things like that. But I think once the switch happened too, I really also appreciated having that time back to myself and being at home, being able to study from home, and I was also working at the time, so it definitely helped me with my energy levels, I think, more by being able to not have to make that long commute and also work and also go to school and all of that. Even now, present day to 2025, I've seen there to be a switch to like more of a focus on skills and certifications and courses rather than a full blown college education degree And as we know, it's super expensive in the United States to get a college degree. And not everybody can even go to college and afford that. And then people that want to come in from international to university have to struggle with visa, with the payment, with the financial. So there's definitely a huge gap in education.
Yeah.
I think modern day we are finally starting to close that gap a little bit by offering more digital learning tools. So if you have like access to Wi-Fi and a computer, which obviously there's still a gap there, but
Hmm.
if you do have access to those resources, at least it's opening up the doors more than before, where you have to have like the ability to pay your college tuition, even attend.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that with the skills and just educational and the settings in general. So I actually want to provide some insight. Back in, I probably say in 2018, I remember having conversations with a lot of people, and I actually was like, I think the school systems are actually going to become obsolete. And this was before a pandemic was talked about. People kind of getting away from just taking the traditional route of getting education. I don't know where that came from. I just had that insight, and then when COVID happened, this is where it was like, oh, okay, now there's a switch. Now with corporate, if you want to go the corporate route, they are more so looking for experience, not more so like educational background experience. So I say all that to say what you mentioned in the skills aspect. I mean, we have both have college degrees. I think it's actually very essential to have skills. And this is subjective, but I actually kind of take that over someone who has an educational degree, like background. What's your thoughts on that? Do you prefer skills, somebody with a good skill set, or somebody who actually went to college and got an MBA or a bachelor's degree? Which one do you think is more useful and effective?
For me, 100% skills is what I would say. I think skills like are actually applicable to the job. Having an education is great, but I think a lot of people don't even go into work in what they got an education in. So it's not determining factor of your skill set or of what you're going to do. So I think honing in on your skills, getting certifications too, I think for me that's more valuable. And also even interpersonal skills that you develop over time through life experience, through communication, through also like internships, real world application. So those interpersonal communication skills, critical thinking, I think to me those things are more important, and definitely a person's personality as well. I saw recently in a job posting it said like, I don't care what education you have, I don't care about your like your backgrounds or stuff like that. I care about if you're a nice person, if you're willing to work with a team and be kind and willing to learn new things. So adaptability, because many times you get in a job and they're going to train you anyways for the specific software you're using or something like that. But if you come in with certain levels of skills, that's definitely worth more than saying like I have 6 years of an educational degree here.
So why did you pursue the educational route? You could ask me the same question.
Yeah,
Did you get why did you pursue the college route? That's a better way to ask that question. And
yeah.
did you do anything differently? So that's a two-part question.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I still believe education is valuable. I think it helped direct me in the path that I wanted to take and also helped me figure out where I want to go and where I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I started off in biology, then I went into computer information systems. From there, I was actually able to start acquiring skills, like technical skills and also like business skills and communication and such. I think, though, it's possible for someone to do these things without having to go to college and get an education. I think there's still a way to do that, but like you're still gonna have to kind of do some sort of learning on your own or with a group or from a teacher of some sort. So all in all, if we define education as the concept of taking in knowledge and learning and developing your skills, I think it's very important. For me, I wanted to go to college. I also wanted to get a master's degree and like specialize specifically in a program tailored around international business. So that
Mm.
was nice because our classes were only about international business. I didn't have to do prerequisites about many other different things. It was strictly focused on that and then finding kind of what areas I wanted to hone in more. So for me, I think college education is important too, but it doesn't stop there. Like you have to continuously learn after college too and through your experiences. So, yeah, that's kind of my take. How about you, Jerome? Why did you go and pursue a degree and like what does it mean to you?
Well, I never actually wanted to pursue. I never wanted to go to college. My plans initially out of high school, I had two choices. It was either to be a businessman, which is entrepreneurship, start my own business, or it was to go into the military. But essentially, yeah, you don't know that. But essentially, I had to get out of my hometown. That was the ultimate goal, to get out of my hometown. But with some deficiencies, I wasn't able to get into the military, the enlisted route. So then that's when I had a friend at the time, well, still a friend to this, their brother, more so to this day, who mentioned ROTC, where you can still go into the military, but you have to go to college, do a 4-year program, and then you go in as an officer. So I was like, okay, cool. I still actually get to, at the time achieve my goal of going into the military. I just have to do 4 years and going to college. So that is how I actually got into college. But once I got into college, my plan was I always have two plans. So the military was one thing, but I still had that business mindset where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go to college, you know, after I graduate, I want to work for a Fortune 500 company, learn the ins and outs on how to start and run a business effectively. And then once I do that, I can do my own thing. So that's how I ended up in college. But that kind of pivoted a bit. So when I got to Georgia State, I was like, okay, I want to actually learn more about life outside of America and doing things internationally. And also, I actually want to build a network with people who come from backgrounds totally different from my own. So I kind of I approach college in chapter 2 of my educational life from a different perspective. I went from the professional side to more so utilizing college as a personal benefit to my own and actually capitalizing on my personal passion, which is to be a global person and start an international business, which is why I chose to do the master's program. It was never to go corporate. The reason why I pursued the master route and wanted to get a graduate degree was to learn how to start a business internationally. So
Mhm.
would I do it again? That's a hard question because if I never went to college, I wouldn't have met you, for example, right? I wouldn't have had on my probability of having a network that I've had and the experience that I've had, maybe slim, maybe less than 5% if I hadn't gone to college. So I'm kind of torn between that, to be honest.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you mentioned something really interesting too with like, when you went to college, it was more so about building like the network and the foundation and the business knowledge. I think that's a really good point. It's like, university, a lot of it was also the connections that we made, the people that we met, the teachers that we had that taught us these things as well. I think it kind of all helped shape us too to understand what we want to focus in on, what skill sets we want to grow and such. Granted though, it's like we pretty much spent like 6 years of our life in university, just university. So it's wild, but I think everything kind of happens for a reason too. If we didn't go to college, maybe in a parallel universe, we'd have a life doing something completely different. Maybe still being business owners and such. And you also brought up a great point with the building an international like connection base
Yeah.
and getting that intercultural experience. So, where we went to school was like downtown and we got to meet people from everywhere. Both of us did like a study abroad program, which I think is a very important thing to shape the future of education, like
Absolutely.
more intercultural exposure. And it's actually going to get even easier with the advancements that we're having in technology. Like, I remember seeing like a virtual reality study abroad, where through virtual reality, you go to a country abroad, you go visit a company abroad, and you learn from their staff and everything like that. So you're able to collect many, many immersive international experiences through at once. So that's quite interesting. Also, webinars where you're able to engage with students and people abroad and learn from them too. And then, of course, like going physically abroad and living somewhere and learning there and building those connections. I think it's less about the materials that you learn and more about that intercultural communicative aspect where you're learning how to engage with people from different cultures and sharpening up like those skills there. I think that's going to be interesting. Do you think that is going to continue to grow or do you think it will diminish?
I think it will continue to grow because in all facets of life, the world is finding every way that it can to become more interconnected. You have a lot of students abroad or just educational universities abroad that kind of want to model what has made certain institutions such as the Harvards, the Georgia States, the Emory's, the Georgia Techs successful, and they want to kind of model that and apply that to the educational institutions. Whereas you have institutions in America such as the Georgia State University, the Emory's, etc., that want to model what institutions abroad have done to be successful, and also just learn how students within the educational system have been able to get so far ahead in advance. So yeah, most definitely I see that increasing every day because education actually may be at the forefront of making the world more interconnected. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So switching gears, we'd like to also share like some tools that can help people out that are interested in learning, doing some courses, doing some skill building as well. So I'll go through a few here and we'll also talk about like kind of what skills we see that are important to have. Obviously, I think all skills in a way have their importance, and obviously we are not like medical people, so we can't necessarily speak on like medical skills or specific to construction, etc. But we do work in digital and business, so we'll speak on some of the skills that we see there that are growing and trending and what you can do to further your skill sets there. If you are interested in more of the technical side of things and you want to learn more about coding, I think that's a great thing to do for where we're moving forward in the world, to have coding skills. You can also utilize some AI tools to help you code as well. But understanding the basic frameworks and understanding how to code can really advance you in the workforce. So there are some tools out there that you can use, like Codecademy. You can learn coding there. There are some other platforms that you could use as well, like Udemy, Coursera, edX, Udacity. So they are helping make like high quality education accessible to everybody. As we said earlier, like if you have Wi-Fi and a computer, you can start to learn these skills and like upskill yourself too. Um, Other skills that I see kind of important moving forward are going to be things around like social media, content creation, marketing. So like Google, HubSpot, Facebook, they all offer a lot of certifications that you can do, and they have courses that you can take too to understand how to run ads, to understand different social media strategies, to understand how to do SEO. So when you take courses like this and are learning these things, you can apply these into like an internship or into a project that you're working with a company, or a project that you undertake on your own. And this will help you continue to grow your skill set more and more and make you more attractive in the workforce or in running your own business as well. So, Jerome, do you have some skills that you think are important moving forward, that people should take a look at, or if they're already interested in these things, some resources that they can look at to learn more?
Yeah, I would say the top three skills that come to mind: critical thinking, communication, and being able to adapt.
How would you say someone who wants to learn more about increasing their communication skills, their adaptability, what can they do to grow these skills that you've mentioned?
I would say utilizing LinkedIn as your best friend, and even YouTube, but for sure, I start with LinkedIn because that's like the number one network to how to professionally network, where you could do a lot of cold calling, look for jobs, build your resume, and just develop those soft skills, get certifications as well. And as far as YouTube, you can watch videos on how to like communicate, actual applicable videos on how to actually be successful on it, tips and tricks on how to be successful with cold calling, reaching people who aren't within your network, etc. So that's my perspective on communication because a lot of people don't know how to effectively communicate. I've learned that. I'm not sure if that was because of COVID, but I think that was always just a thing. I think it's just gotten worse. So that's my thoughts on communication.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And you mentioned like LinkedIn and doing like cold calling and reaching out to people.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone who maybe hasn't done this before? Like they haven't cold called somebody before, but they want to try it, or they haven't sent a message to somebody before on LinkedIn just like that. Maybe they're nervous to. What advice do you have for someone who wants to utilize LinkedIn and how they can get started with reaching out to people?
I would just say number one, know what your goal is with whatever it is you're trying to achieve, right? Because people times are very precious and a lot of people on LinkedIn don't like their time to be wasted. A lot of people got a lot of followers on LinkedIn. So your chances of getting them to respond is kind of slim. So you got to basically be straightforward and don't go in looking for anything. That's probably the biggest thing. Just go in there looking to be genuine and actually develop a personal connection. You're not looking for help. You're not looking for whatever the case may be. Just go with having something of value that you can provide, and vice versa.
Yeah. And people, are actually more willing to help others than sometimes we may perceive in our minds. Like if somebody, for example, came to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, could really use your expertise on something." Conciseness is key.
Yeah.
Personally, I really don't respond to messages I get that are like this long. Like I'm just like, that's too long, and it obviously looks like a sales message, like a copy and paste. I think, like Jerome said, being personable with somebody is best. Like very quick, like, "Hey, I'd love to explore potential collaboration. I have this product service. I think it could be beneficial. But I want to understand more about what you're doing, etc." Just different things like that. Even pointing something out, a similarity that you may have with a person. "Hey, I see we both went to Georgia State and you're working in so and so. Like, I'd love to learn more about how your experience there has been." Long story short, don't be scared to reach out to people. Like, the worst thing that could happen is no response or rejection.
Rejection is a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think, like, as we discussed in this podcast, like, focus in on your skills too. Like, see how you can grow your skills and focus in on how you can come in and solve a problem for somebody or add some sort of value to someone. And don't be afraid to reach out to people.
You just got to know how to use. It's kind of like a stock. You kind of just got to know why you are investing in education, and are you
Mhm.
looking? What are you looking to do in the short term and the long term? So that's how I look at education. So like, where is the world currently? And also, you got to know what you're going to school for.
Well, so that's the topic of education, guys. So we covered, things around skills to look out for, the change from traditional to digital education, trends that we see arising, and how to leverage your network, and also how to make yourself more attractive in the workforce and in running your own business through skills. So if you guys have any more questions around this topic or any topics you guys want to hear on, let us know in the comments.
That's another episode of the Globally Connected podcast.